They found her on the living room floor at 11:47 p.m., blood trailing from her mouth like a crimson ribbon across the beige carpet she'd vacuumed just hours before. Her neighbor, a middle-aged nurse who'd heard sounds through the thin walls, knelt beside her, phone pressed to her ear, repeating the address in a trembling voice while the woman on the floor whispered 3 words that would haunt everyone who heard them. He said, "He's coming back." But here's what nobody understood yet, what the police wouldn't piece together until days later, what made this case different from every other assault that gets filed away in some forgotten drawer. This wasn't random violence. This wasn't a stranger who broke through a window or a robbery gone wrong. This was methodical, planned, seductive. And it started with the one thing we're all told will save us from loneliness: connection. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever downloaded an app hoping someone might see you again, if you've ever wondered whether starting over is even possible after loss, don't click away. Because what happened to this woman could happen to anyone. And by the end of this story, you'll know exactly what signs she missed. Hit that like button right now if you believe survivors deserve justice, and subscribe because this channel tells the stories that need to be heard, the ones that make us uncomfortable, the ones that wake us up. The woman lying on that floor wasn't supposed to be there. She wasn't supposed to be bleeding. She wasn't supposed to be alone. 3 months earlier, she'd been something entirely different, invisible. At 65, she moved through her days like a ghost in her own home, a 3-bedroom house in Beaumont, Texas, where every room still smelled faintly of the man who used to fill them with laughter. 7 years had passed since her husband's death, and in that time she perfected the art of existing without truly living. Her mornings began at 6:15 a.m. always. The alarm clock, one of those old digital ones with red numbers that glow like warning lights, would pull her from dreams where he was still alive, still making coffee too strong, still humming off-key in the shower. She'd wake up reaching for him. Her hand would find cold sheets. Every single morning. By 6:30 she'd be in the kitchen, making tea she didn't really want, staring at the empty chair across from her. The wooden chair with the slightly wobbly leg he'd always meant to fix. She kept meaning to fix it herself, but somehow that wobble had become sacred. Proof he'd existed, proof they'd had plans, proof she wasn't making up the entire life they'd built. The house was a museum of their marriage. His reading glasses still sat on the nightstand. His favorite mug, the one that said "World's Okayest Husband," remained in the cabinet, untouched. She'd donated his clothes years ago, but she kept his cologne, and sometimes, on particularly hollow nights, she'd spray it on his pillow just to remember what it felt like to not be alone. Her daughter called twice a week, always rushed, always apologetic. "Mama, I'm sorry, work is crazy. The kids have soccer. I'll visit soon, I promise." Those promises hung in the air like smoke, visible for a moment, then gone. The church ladies came once a month for Bible study, bringing casseroles and sympathy that felt more like pity. They'd pat her hand and say things like, "He's in a better place now," as if that was supposed to make the empty bed feel less vast, as if eternal peace for him somehow translated to comfort for her. It didn't. It happened on a Tuesday. Tuesdays were the worst because they had no identity, not the hope of Monday's fresh start, not the relief of Friday's promise. Just middle, forgettable, gray. She'd spent the day watering her hibiscus plants, the red ones he'd planted for their 30th anniversary, and talking to them like they could hear her. "You need more water? You look thirsty." "Me too, baby. Me too." By 8:47 p.m., she was sitting in the living room, staring at the television without seeing it. Some game show was on, people screaming about prizes and spinning wheels, and all she could think was, when did I become the person who watches other people live while I just watch? Her phone sat on the coffee table, dark and silent. No texts. No calls. No notifications. Just the time, 8:47 p.m. And in that moment, something inside her cracked. Not broke. That had happened 7 years ago at the funeral. This was different. This was the sound of a woman deciding she couldn't survive another year of talking to plants and pretending she was fine. She picked up her phone. Her hands shook as she opened the app store. She'd heard about it from one of the younger women at church, whispered conversations in the bathroom about swiping and matching and putting yourself out there. She'd laughed it off then, said something about being too old for that nonsense. But now, alone in a room where even the furniture looked tired of her, she typed 4 letters into the search bar. Tinder. Her thumb hovered over the download button for 3 full minutes. What would people think? What would her daughter say? What would he say? But here's the thing about loneliness, it doesn't care about propriety. It doesn't care about judgment. It just aches deep in your chest until you'll do anything to make it stop. She pressed download. She didn't tell anyone. Not her daughter. Not the church ladies. Not even her sister who lived 2 states away and called every Sunday like clockwork. Creating the profile felt like cheating, even though her husband had been gone for 7 years. She used an old photo from a church picnic. Nothing fancy, just her smiling in front of the dessert table, wearing her yellow cardigan and pearl earrings. She wrote 3 sentences in her bio. Widow. Still believes in kindness. Not sure what I'm looking for, but I'll know it when I see it. She almost deleted the whole thing 5 times before pressing activate. Then came the waiting. She told herself she wouldn't check it constantly. She'd just glance. Every hour. Maybe every 30 minutes. Fine, every 10 minutes. For 3 days nothing happened. A few profiles appeared. Men holding fish, men in sunglasses leaning against cars, men with photos clearly taken 20 years ago. She swiped left on all of them, feeling ridiculous, feeling desperate, feeling like she'd made a terrible mistake. And then, on the 4th day at 2:33 p.m. while she was folding laundry that smelled like lavender detergent and loneliness, her phone chimed. You have a new match. Her heart did something it hadn't done in years. It raced. She dropped the towel she was folding and grabbed her phone with shaking hands. The profile photo showed a man with kind eyes, deep brown, with smile lines that suggested he laughed often. He wore a simple navy sweater, nothing flashy, and his smile was gentle, almost shy. His profile said he was 62, a widower, former choir director. But it was his bio that made her breath catch. Looking for someone who still believes in second chances. She stared at that sentence until tears blurred her vision. Second chances. Was that even possible? Before she could overthink it, a message appeared. Your smile in that photo. It looks real. That's rare these days. She read it 7 times. Then 8. Her fingers trembled as she typed back. Thank you. That's kind of you to say. His response came within seconds. Not kind. Just honest. I'm trying to learn the difference between the two. And just like that, in a laundry room that still smelled like her husband's cologne, a woman who'd forgotten how to hope felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Interest. Drop a comment right now telling me, have you or someone you know ever met someone online? Because what happens next will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about digital connections. Over the next 3 weeks, her phone became a portal to a different life. They messaged every day, sometimes for hours. He'd send her good morning texts at 7:13 a.m., always with something specific. Hope your hibiscus plants are thriving. You mentioned the red one was looking sad. Did it perk up? You remembered everything. The name of her favorite hymn, His Eye is on the Sparrow. The way her knee hurt when it rained. Her daughter's birthday. The specific brand of tea she drank every morning. How she hummed when she was nervous. Things even her daughter didn't remember anymore. They graduated from text messages to voice notes. His voice deep and warm, like honey over gravel. He told her about his late wife, how he'd lost her to cancer 4 years ago, how he still sometimes set the table for 2 before remembering. Does that ever go away? She asked in a voice note one night, sitting in her darkened bedroom. The reaching for someone who isn't there? His response came 15 minutes later, and she could hear the emotion in his voice. I don't know if it goes away. But maybe it gets easier when you find someone who understands why you're still reaching. She played that voice note 17 times. Then 23. Then she lost count. They moved to phone calls, long ones that stretched past midnight. He'd talk about his time as a choir director, how music could heal things words couldn't touch. She'd tell him about the hibiscus plants, about her husband's wobbling chair, about how she perfected the art of looking fine while falling apart. And he listened. Not the performative listening people do while waiting for their turn to talk. Real listening. The kind where he'd circle back to something she mentioned 3 days ago and ask how it turned out. Did you ever fix that back gate that was sticking? He'd ask. How did that appointment with your doctor go? What did your daughter say when you finally told her about the plants? Every question was a thread, weaving them closer together, building something that felt real even though they'd never met, never touched, never breathed the same air. One night, during their usual 10 p.m. call, he said something that changed everything. I need to meet you. Silence stretched between them, thick with possibility and fear. I don't want to pressure you, he continued, his voice soft. But I can't keep sending you emojis when what I really want is to hand you actual flowers. You deserve more than pixels on a screen. Her heart hammered against her ribs like it was trying to escape. She started, then stopped. Take your time, he said gently. I'm not going anywhere. But that was the thing, she didn't want time. She'd had 7 years of time. 7 years of caution. 7 years of safety that felt more like suffocation. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Let's meet. She could hear his smile through the phone. How about dinner? Your place? I'll bring the wine. You provide the company. And there it was, the invitation that would change everything. The invitation that would lead to blood on carpet and a voicemail that would make detectives' blood run cold. The invitation that would prove sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones who know exactly what you're hungry for. Connection. She spent 3 days preparing. She cleaned the house until her knees ached, dusting picture frames, polishing the dining table until she could see her reflection, vacuuming the carpet so thoroughly that the lines looked like perfect rows in a field. She went to the store and bought ingredients for her best meal. The pot roast her husband used to beg for, garlic mashed potatoes, green beans with bacon, and her famous peach cobbler that won first place at the church bake-off 3 years running. She bought a new dress. Lavender, because he'd mentioned once that it was his late wife's favorite color and it always made him think of fresh starts. She even set out her husband's old jazz records, the ones that used to play on Sunday mornings when they'd dance in the kitchen while bacon sizzled on the stove. Everything was perfect. Everything was ready. On the day of the dinner, a Thursday that felt heavy with significance, she checked her reflection in the mirror 17 times. The lavender dress fit well. Her pearl earrings caught the light. Her lipstick was subtle, appropriate, not trying too hard. She looked like a woman about to have dinner with someone special. She had no idea she looked like prey. At 6:45 p.m., she lit the candles on the dining table. At 6:58 p.m., she checked her phone for the 10th time, rereading his message. On my way. Can't wait to finally see you in person. At 7:03 p.m., she heard a car pull into her driveway. At 7:04 p.m., she heard footsteps on her porch. At 7:05 p.m., she opened the door. And there he stood, exactly as handsome as his photos, maybe more so. Warm brown eyes, gentle smile, holding a bottle of wine and a bouquet of yellow roses. Hi, he said softly. Hi, she whispered back. He handed her the flowers, and when their fingers touched, she felt it, that electric spark romance novels promise but life rarely delivers. You're even more beautiful in person, he said, and his voice was the same one from the phone calls, warm and genuine. She smiled, feeling 15 years younger, feeling seen for the first time in forever. Come in, she said, stepping aside. He crossed the threshold. She closed the door behind him. Neither of them knew it yet, but that simple act, door closing, lock sliding into place, was the sound of a trap snapping shut. If your heart is racing right now, if you feel that knot of dread forming in your stomach, hit that subscribe button because you need to see what happens next. And drop a comment. Do you think she should have trusted her instincts? We'll find out together why sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones who look like answered prayers. The pot roast sat perfectly arranged on her grandmother's china, the plates she'd only used for holidays and special occasions, the ones with tiny blue flowers painted along the edges. Steam rose from the mashed potatoes and lazy curls, and the green beans glistened with bacon fat and butter. Everything looked like a magazine spread, like the life she used to have, like the future she was trying to build. He sat across from her, wine glass in hand, candlelight softening the angles of his face, making him look almost angelic. And she believed she was safe. Dinner started exactly as she dreamed. He complimented everything: the food, the house, the way she'd arranged the flowers he brought in a crystal vase on the side table. His eyes traveled across the room, taking in the framed photos, the cross-stitch sampler on the wall that read, "Bless this home," the bookshelf filled with paperback mysteries and devotionals. "Your home feels like you," he said, cutting into the pot roast with practiced ease. "Warm, welcoming, full of care." She felt her cheeks flush with pleasure. "That's kind of you." There's that word again, kind. He smiled, the same gentle smile from his profile photos. "I'm starting to think you don't know how to take a genuine compliment." "I'm out of practice," she admitted, surprising herself with her honesty. "Then let me give you practice." He set down his fork and looked directly at her, his brown eyes steady and sincere. "You are a remarkable woman. The way you've rebuilt your life after loss, the way you still find joy in hibiscus plants and Sunday services, the way you opened your heart enough to take a chance on a stranger from the internet, that takes courage most people don't have." Something in her chest cracked open. 7 years of holding everything together, of pretending she was fine, of being strong for her daughter and faithful for her church ladies and composed for the world, and here was someone telling her that surviving counted as courage. "I don't feel courageous," she whispered. "The bravest people never do." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes, just the soft clink of silverware on china and the smooth voice of Billie Holiday drifting from the record player. He'd brought the wine, a Merlot she couldn't pronounce, and it tasted expensive, rich, like something she didn't deserve but was grateful to have. After her second glass, the edges of the world went soft. "Tell me about your husband," he said suddenly. Most people avoided the topic, skirted around it like grief was contagious. But he leaned forward, genuinely interested, and so she told him. She told him about meeting at a church picnic when she was 19, about their wedding in a tiny chapel with more love than budget, about 46 years of ordinary moments that added up to an extraordinary life. She told him about the wobbling chair and the cologne and how sometimes she still set the table for two. And he listened. He didn't interrupt. Didn't offer hollow comfort. Didn't try to fix anything. He just witnessed her. When she finished, tears tracking down her cheeks, he reached across the table and took her hand. His touch was warm, steady, safe. "He sounds like he was a good man," he said quietly. "And he'd be proud of you for still living." She squeezed his hand, grateful beyond words. "Now tell me about your wife," she said, because fairness mattered, because connection was a two-way street. His expression shifted. Something flickered across his face, too quick to name. Then the gentle smile returned. "She was my everything," he said. "Choir director at our church. Had a voice that could make grown men cry. Cancer took her piece by piece until there was nothing left but pain and morphine." His voice broke on the last word. She squeezed his hand tighter, offering the same witnessing he'd given her. "She died on a Tuesday," he continued. "I remember thinking how wrong that was. How someone that extraordinary shouldn't end on such a forgettable day." "Tuesdays are the worst," she agreed softly. He looked up, surprised. "You feel that too?" "Every week." Something passed between them, a shared understanding that needed no explanation. Two people who'd survived the unsurvivable, who knew what it meant to wake up reaching for ghosts. By the time they finished dessert, her peach cobbler served with vanilla ice cream, it was nearly 9:30 p.m. The candles had burned down to stubs, and the wine bottle sat empty between them. "I should help you clean up," he offered, standing and gathering plates. "You don't have to." "I want to." So they washed dishes together, her washing, him drying, standing close in her small kitchen. He smelled like woodsy cologne and wine, and when his arm brushed against hers, she felt that spark again, that teenage flutter she thought had died with her husband. The moment everything shifted. They moved to the living room after the dishes were done. She offered coffee, but he declined. "I'm caffeinated enough just being here," he said, and she laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in months. He sat on the couch, and after a moment's hesitation, she sat beside him. Not too close. Respectable distance. The kind her church ladies would approve of. For a while they just talked, about music, about books, about the strange comfort of growing older and caring less what people thought. And then, in a lull between topics, he said something that made her entire body go still. "You've been lonely a long time." It wasn't a question. "Yes," she admitted, because lying felt impossible under his gaze. "So have I." He shifted closer just an inch. "And I keep thinking, maybe we don't have to be anymore." Her heart hammered. "What do you mean?" His hand found hers again, fingers interlacing. "I mean this connection we've built. It doesn't have to stay confined to phone calls and text messages. It could be to more." The word hung between them, heavy with possibility. "I'm not sure I'm ready for more," she said carefully, even though parts of her screamed that they'd been ready for 7 years. "I'm not talking about rushing into anything." His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand, and the sensation sent electricity up her arm. "I just mean, let yourself feel this. Feel me. Feel us." He leaned closer. She could smell the wine on his breath. "We're not doing anything wrong," he murmured. "We're just two people who deserve a little comfort." His free hand came up to cup her cheek, tilting her face toward his. And in that moment, with candlelight flickering and Billie Holiday singing about love and loneliness, she made a choice. She didn't pull away. The kiss that tasted like hope and danger. His lips were soft against hers. Gentle. Patient. Nothing like the hungry, desperate kisses she'd read about in novels. This was reverent, like he was handling something precious and fragile. When they broke apart, she was breathless. "Wow," she whispered. "Yeah," he agreed. "Wow." They sat there, foreheads touching, breathing each other's air. Her mind spun with thoughts. Is this okay? What would people think? What would he think? But her body had already made its decision. She'd been alone for 7 years. 7 years of cold sheets and one-sided conversations. 7 years of surviving instead of living. And here was someone offering warmth. "Stay a little longer?" she asked, hating how desperate she sounded but unable to stop herself. His smile widened. "I'd like that." They kissed again, longer this time. His hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer. She felt clumsy, out of practice, like a teenager who'd never done this before. But he was patient. So patient. "Relax," he murmured against her lips. "I've got you." And she believed him. The shift. It happened so gradually she almost didn't notice. His kisses grew more insistent. His hands, which had been respectful on her waist, began to wander, sliding up her ribs, brushing the underside of her breast. "Wait," she said, pulling back slightly. "Let's slow down." "We are going slow," he assured her, his voice still gentle but with a new edge underneath, something harder. "I'm just appreciating you." His mouth found her neck, and despite her reservations, it felt good. 7 years without touch had left her skin hungry, desperate for sensation. But when his hand slipped beneath the hem of her lavender dress, reality crashed back. "No," she said firmly, grabbing his wrist. "That's too far." He froze. For a heartbeat, she thought he'd respect her boundary, apologize, back off. But then his grip on her waist tightened. "Come on," he said, and his voice, that warm honey-over-gravel voice she'd fallen for, dropped several degrees. "Don't be like that." "Like what?" Panic fluttered in her chest, a bird beating against a cage. "Teasing." The word came out sharp. "You invite me over, cook dinner, wear that dress, kiss me, and now you want to pretend you don't want this?" I thought." She stumbled over her words, feeling stupid and old and out of her depth. "I just need more time." His jaw clenched. "How much more time? We've been talking for weeks, building up to this. You can't just." "I can," she interrupted, finding her voice. "And I need you to leave." For 3 seconds nothing happened. They stared at each other, and in his eyes she saw something that made her blood turn to ice water. Calculation. Not hurt. Not disappointment. Just cold, predatory calculation. "Leave," she repeated, standing on shaking legs. "Please." He stood slowly, hands raised in mock surrender. Okay. I'm sorry. You're right. I pushed too hard." The gentleness was back in his voice, but it sounded wrong now, like a recording played over something rotten. "I'll go," he said, moving toward the door. Relief flooded through her. But then his hand was on the doorknob, and instead of turning it, he locked it. The soft click of the deadbolt might as well have been a gunshot. She watched, frozen, as he turned back to face her. And the mask, the kind eyes, the gentle smile, the wounded widower who just wanted connection, cracked down the middle and fell away completely. What stood in her living room now wasn't the man from the phone calls. It was something else. Something that had always been there, hiding beneath the honey-warm voice and the remembered details and the patient, reverent touches. A predator who'd finally cornered his prey. "Here's what's going to happen," he said, his voice flat and cold. "You're going to stop fighting. You're going to give me what you've been promising for weeks. And if you scream—" He pulled something from his pocket, and streetlight glinting through the window caught on metal. A knife. Small. Utilitarian. Terrifying. "This gets a lot worse for you." Her knees nearly buckled. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't. You brought this on yourself." He stepped closer and she backed away, her hip hitting the side table and sending the vase of yellow roses crashing to the floor. Water spread across hardwood. Glass glittered like scattered stars. Lonely old woman, desperate for attention, inviting strange men into her home. What did you think was going to happen? The words hit harder than his hands had. Because part of her, the part that had been warned all her life about strange men and bad decisions and women who asked for it, believed him. "I'm sorry," she heard herself say, hating herself for it. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean." Too late for sorry. He grabbed her arm, fingers digging into soft flesh hard enough to bruise, and dragged her toward the hallway. Toward her bedroom. Toward the place where she'd slept beside her husband for 46 years, where she still smelled his cologne on lonely nights, where she'd built a shrine to a love that was supposed to last forever. And as he shoved her through the bedroom doorway, as her shin cracked against the bed frame, as she heard him unbuckling his belt, one thought screamed through her mind. This can't be happening. But it was. Later, much later, when detectives asked her to recount what happened, she would struggle to find words. Because how do you describe having your body stolen? How do you explain the feeling of disappearing from yourself, of floating somewhere near the ceiling while a stranger does unspeakable things to the shell you left behind? She remembered fragments. The weight of him crushing the air from her lungs. The sound of her lavender dress tearing. His breath, hot and sour against her neck. Her own voice, begging, pleading, bargaining with God and monster both. The bedside lamp casting shadows that looked like demons. And worst of all, the moment she stopped fighting. Not because she wanted to, but because her 65-year-old body, already betrayed by arthritis and osteoporosis and 7 years of lonely erosion, simply gave out. She disappeared into herself and waited for it to end. I need you to pause right here and take a breath. If this story is affecting you, that's normal. That means you're human. But here's why we tell these stories, because silence protects predators. If you know someone who's been through something like this, drop a heart in the comments. Let them know they're not alone. And subscribe because you need to see how this woman refused to stay a victim. When it was finally over, he stood at the foot of her bed, adjusting his clothes like he'd just finished a business transaction. She lay curled on her side, pulled into herself as small as possible, trying not to exist. "Don't call the police," he said casually, like he was offering friendly advice. "They won't believe you anyway. A woman your age inviting a man over for dinner and drinks? Everyone will know what you were really after." He walked to her dresser, picked up a framed photo, her and her late husband on their wedding day, both so young and full of hope it hurt to look at. He studied it for a moment, then set it down carefully. "You have a beautiful home," he said. "Shame to ruin it with a police investigation and all that comes with it. The questions. The lawyers. Your daughter finding out what you've been up to online." The threat landed like he intended. She said nothing. Couldn't. He walked toward the bedroom door, then paused in the threshold. "Oh, and one more thing." He turned back and his smile was the same gentle one from his profile photos. "I know where you live now. I know your schedule. I know you're alone. So if you even think about making this difficult for me..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. She heard him walk through her living room, stepping over the shattered vase, across the floor where they danced together just hours ago, and out the front door. The door closed with a soft click. The deadbolt didn't engage. He'd left it unlocked. A reminder that he could come back whenever he wanted. She lay in her violated bed for 23 minutes, not moving, barely breathing. And then, with hands that shook so badly she could barely grip her phone, she dialed the first 3 numbers. 911. But before she could press the final digit, her screen lit up with an incoming call. Unknown number. Her blood turned to ice. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. 30 seconds later, her phone chimed with a notification. 1 new voicemail. With trembling fingers, she pressed play. And his voice, that honey-warm voice that had seduced her, that had promised second chances, that had just destroyed her, filled her bedroom. I forgot to mention. That was fun. We should do it again soon. I'll be in touch. Sleep tight. Then, just before the voicemail ended, he added one more thing. Oh, and if you tell anyone about tonight, I'll come back. And next time will be much worse. The message ended. She sat in the dark, holding her phone like a grenade, and realized something that would haunt her for weeks. He wanted her to call the police. He wanted her to feel powerless. He wanted her to know that even if she screamed, even if she fought back, even if she did everything right, he would still win. Because that's what predators do. They don't just take your body. They take your voice. At 11:47 p.m., her neighbor, a nurse who'd been coming home from a double shift, heard sounds through the thin walls. Not screams. Worse. Silence. The kind of silence that follows something terrible. She knocked on the door. Hello. You okay in there? No answer. She knocked again, harder. I'm calling the police if you don't answer. Still nothing. But the door was unlocked. She pushed it open slowly, calling out as she entered. And there, crawling across the living room floor, blood trailing from her mouth where she'd bitten through her lip, bruises already blooming across her arms, eyes empty of everything except fear, was the woman who'd been laughing over pot roast just hours ago. The nurse dropped to her knees beside her, already pulling out her phone. What happened? Who did this? The woman's lips moved, but barely any sound came out. The nurse leaned closer. And in a voice that sounded like it had been dragged across broken glass, the woman whispered 3 words. He said he's coming back. Hit that like button if you believe no one deserves this, no matter what they wore or who they invited over. Drop a comment with the word justice if you want to see how this story ends. And subscribe because in the next chapter, you'll discover the first major twist that changes everything, including who this predator really was. Because what happened next? Nobody saw it coming. Not the police. Not the victim. Not even him. The emergency room at Baptist Hospital smelled like antiseptic and broken promises. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a sickly blue-white glow that made even the healthy look like corpses. She sat on the examination table, paper crinkling beneath her with every small movement, wearing a hospital gown that opened in the back and made her feel even more exposed than she already was. A nurse, different from the one who'd found her, moved around the room with quiet efficiency, photographing bruises, collecting evidence, speaking in soft tones that somehow made everything worse. This is a sane kit, the nurse explained, holding up a white box with official-looking labels. Sexual assault nurse examiner. It helps us collect forensic evidence. I know this is difficult, but everything we gather now could help catch whoever did this. The woman, still nameless to protect what little dignity she had left, nodded mechanically. She'd stopped crying an hour ago. Not because the pain had lessened, but because tears required energy she no longer possessed. Detective Rachel Morrison arrived at 1:47 a.m., carrying a notepad and the kind of exhaustion that comes from seeing too much evil over too many years. She was 43, black, and had worked sex crimes for the past decade, long enough to know that the worst monsters were the ones who looked like everyone else. She pulled a chair close to the examination table, careful not to invade space that had already been violated. "I'm Detective Morrison," she said gently. "And before you say anything, I want you to know, I believe you." The woman's eyes filled with tears, the first one since they'd stopped over an hour ago. People don't usually start with that, she whispered. They should. Morrison opened her notepad. Now, I need you to tell me everything you remember. And I know that's going to be hard. Take your time. So she told it. All of it. The dating app. The messages. The phone calls. The voice notes about second chances and loneliness and understanding. The dinner she'd spent 3 days preparing. The kiss that tasted like hope. The moment everything shifted. The locked door. The knife. The hours that followed. The voicemail that still sat on her phone like a ticking bomb. Morrison wrote quickly, her pen moving across the page in tight, efficient strokes. This voicemail, she said when the woman finished. You still have it? Yes. Can I hear it? The woman's hand shook as she unlocked her phone and pulled up the message. She handed it to Morrison without pressing play, couldn't bear to hear that voice again. Morrison pressed the speaker button. The voice filled the small examination room, warm, gentle, terrifying. I forgot to mention. That was fun. We should do it again soon. I'll be in touch. Sleep tight. Oh, and if you tell anyone about tonight, I'll come back. And next time will be much worse. Morrison's jaw tightened. That's evidence, she said quietly. Concrete, undeniable evidence. Not many survivors have this. Does that mean you can catch him? Morrison looked at her directly. We're going to try like hell. Back at the police station at 3:22 a.m., Morrison sat in front of her computer with 3 other detectives gathered around her screen. They'd pulled the victim's phone records, her dating app history, every digital footprint she'd left. The profile name was simple, Michael R. Age 62. Widower. Former choir director. The photos showed a handsome man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. But when they ran facial recognition through their database, something strange happened. No matches. Run it again, Morrison ordered. They did. Still nothing. What about reverse image search? Suggested Detective Hayes, a younger officer with sharp instincts. They uploaded the profile photos to multiple search engines. And there it was, the first crack in the mask. The photos belonged to a different man entirely. A real person named Richard Brennan, a retired music teacher from Oregon who died 3 years ago from a heart attack. His obituary was still online, complete with the same photos the predator had stolen. He's catfishing, Morrison said, but her mind was already 3 steps ahead. Using a dead man's photos. Which means he's done this before. He's smart. What about the phone number? Hayes asked. They traced it. Burner phone. Purchased with cash at a pharmacy in Houston 3 months ago. No name attached. Surveillance footage from that day had already been erased per store policy. Dead end. The dating profile? Another detective suggested. They contacted the app's security team. Emergency request. Active criminal investigation. The profile had been deleted at 11:52 p.m., just minutes after the assault. But the app kept backup data. They found his email address, tempmail_887 @temporaryemailservice.com. Another dead end. The email service specialized in anonymous, disposable addresses that self-destructed after 48 hours. This guy knows what he's doing, Morrison muttered, rubbing her temples. He's covered his tracks. Burner phone. Fake photos. Disposable email. Deleted profile. So we've got nothing? Hayes sounded defeated. Morrison looked at him. We've got something better than nothing. We've got her house. The crime scene that held secrets. By 6:15 a.m., Morrison and her team were at the woman's house in Beaumont. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange that felt obscene given what had happened here. Crime scene techs moved through the rooms like surgical instruments, photographing, measuring, collecting. Morrison stood in the living room, studying the scene. Broken vase on the floor. Yellow roses wilting in the spilled water. Wine glasses on the coffee table, 2 of them lipstick on one rim. She walked to the dining room. Candles burned down to stubs. Dirty dishes still in the sink. The victim had been too traumatized to clean them before the assault. Morrison could see the meal, pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans. He'd sat here and eaten with her before destroying her. The thought made Morrison's blood boil. She moved to the bedroom. This was harder. The bed was unmade, sheets tangled and blood-stained. The lavender dress lay crumpled in the corner, torn at the shoulder. Her husband's cologne bottle sat on the nightstand, recently used. The victim had mentioned spraying it on the pillow for comfort. "Detective." One of the techs called from the living room. Morrison walked back, careful not to contaminate anything. The tech held up an evidence bag containing a wine glass. "Got a beautiful thumbprint on this one. Clear as day." Morrison felt something spark in her chest. "Run it through AFIS. Priority 1. AFIS, Automated Fingerprint Identification System. If this predator had ever been arrested, ever been fingerprinted for any reason, they'd find him." The tech bagged 2 more items: fibers from the couch cushion and a partial boot print near the bedroom doorway. "He was confident," Morrison observed. "Didn't bother covering his tracks inside the house." "Why?" "Because he thinks she won't report it," Hayes suggested. "The voicemail. The threats. He's counting on her silence. Then he doesn't know the woman we just met." Morrison's voice was steel. "She called 911. She gave us everything. She's not staying silent. Drop a comment right now. Have you ever underestimated someone based on their age? Because what this woman does next will shatter every stereotype about victims and survivors. And hit that like button if you believe age is just a number when it comes to courage." 72 hours after the assault, the fingerprint results came back. Morrison sat at her desk at 2:33 p.m., staring at her computer screen, and felt her entire understanding of the case shift. Match found. Name Adrian Holt. Age 44, not 62. Criminal record. 2019. Arrested for fraud in Louisiana. Charges dropped due to lack of evidence. 2021. Questioned in connection with a sexual assault in Mississippi. Victim refused to testify. Case dismissed. 2023. Suspected in 2 incidents involving older women in neighboring Texas cities. Both victims dropped charges after receiving threatening phone calls. Morrison's hands clenched into fists. He'd done this before. Multiple times. And he'd gotten away with it because his victims were too scared to follow through. She pulled up his booking photo from the 2019 fraud arrest. And there he was, the man behind the stolen photos. Younger than his fake profile claimed. Handsome in a generic way. Forgettable. The kind of face that could disappear in a crowd. "Hayes." Morrison called out. "Get in here." Hayes appeared in seconds. Morrison spun her monitor around. "Meet Adrian Holt. Our predator. And guess what? He's not a widower. He's not a choir director. He's a professional con artist who specializes in lonely, older women." Hayes leaned closer, studying the photo. "Do we have a current address?" "Last known was a short-term rental in Houston. Lease ended 2 months ago. No forwarding address." "Family?" Morrison scrolled through the database. "Mother deceased. Father unknown. 1 sister." She paused. "Hold on. Sister named Patricia Holt. Address listed as the same Houston rental. Think she knows what he's doing? Let's find out." They found Patricia Holt working at a coffee shop in downtown Houston. One of those trendy places with exposed brick and overpriced lattes. She was 38, thin, nervous looking. When Morrison and Hayes flashed their badges, she went pale. "I haven't seen him," she said immediately. "I don't know where he is." "We didn't ask if you'd seen him," Morrison said calmly. "Yet." They moved to a corner table, away from customers. Patricia's hands shook as she gripped her coffee mug. "What did he do now?" "So you know he does things worth investigating?" Hayes caught the slip. Patricia closed her eyes. "I know my brother has problems." "Problems?" Morrison leaned forward. "He raped a 65-year-old woman in her own home after spending weeks grooming her online. That's not a problem. That's a pattern." Patricia flinched at the word pattern. "How many?" Morrison pressed. "How many women has he done this to?" I can't." "You can. And you will. Because if you have knowledge of these crimes and you're protecting him, that makes you an accessory." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. "He's my brother. And those women are someone's mother, someone's grandmother, someone who trusted him. Morrison's voice was hard but not unkind. Help us stop him. Patricia was silent for a long moment. Then, quietly, he started about 5 years ago. After his divorce, he was angry, bitter. Said women had taken everything from him. So he decided to take from them? He said. Patricia's voice dropped to a whisper. He said older women were easy, lonely, desperate, that they'd do anything for attention, that they'd never report it because they'd be too ashamed. Morrison felt sick. How many? She asked again. I don't know exact numbers. 10? 15? He moves around a lot. Different cities. Always targets women through dating apps. Always the same pattern. Builds trust, meets them at their homes, and then... She couldn't finish. Did you ever try to stop him? Patricia looked up, tears streaming down her face. I called the police once. After the first woman I knew about. But he found out. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing a scar that ran from wrist to elbow. He said next time I interfered, he'd finish the job. So you stayed quiet. I'm a coward. I know that. But I'm also alive. Morrison studied her. He's not going to stop. You know that, right? He's going to keep doing this until someone stops him. I know. So help us. Patricia took a shaky breath. He has a new phone. Changes it every few months. But he always... She paused. He always texts me from the new number. Just to let me know he's alive. Last message was 3 days ago. The day after the assault. Do you still have it? Patricia pulled out her phone and showed them. Unknown number. Simple message, still breathing. Don't worry about me. Can we trace this? Hayes asked Morrison. We can try. Morrison photographed the message. Patricia, I need you to do something. If he contacts you again, you text us immediately. Don't respond to him. Don't warn him. Just notify us. And if he finds out I helped you, we'll protect you. Witness protection if necessary. Patricia laughed bitterly. You can't protect me from him. Nobody can. Watch us. If you're feeling the tension building, if you want justice for this woman, smash that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me, do you think the sister should face charges too? And stay tuned because the next twist is going to blow your mind. Back in Beaumont, the woman sat in her living room, the same room where she'd been assaulted 8 days ago, and stared at the phone in her hands. Detective Morrison had just left after updating her on the case. They'd identified him. They knew his pattern. They were building evidence. But they still couldn't find him. He's smart, Morrison had said. He knows how to disappear. But we're going to catch him. I promise you that. Promises felt hollow now. Everything felt hollow. Her daughter had come to stay for a few days, hovering and worrying and asking questions the woman couldn't answer. The church ladies had brought more casseroles and sympathy. Her sister had called every day, crying and apologizing for things that weren't her fault. Everyone meant well. But nobody understood. Nobody could. She'd stopped sleeping in her bedroom. Couldn't. The bed had been stripped, the mattress donated, but the room still felt contaminated. She slept on the couch now when she slept at all, with every light in the house burning. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her entire body went rigid. She almost didn't look. But she had to. The message was simple. Miss me yet? Her hands shook so badly she dropped the phone. It clattered on the hardwood floor, the same floor where she'd crawled while bleeding, where the roses had shattered, where her life had split into before and after. She picked it up with trembling fingers. Another message appeared. That's what I thought. Remember what I said. Stay quiet. Then as she watched in horror, a photo loaded. Her house. Taken from outside. Today. She could see her car in the driveway. Could see the new lock she'd installed on the front door. Could see the curtains she'd drawn closed for privacy. He was watching her. For 3 seconds she sat frozen in terror. And then something inside her, something that had been broken and beaten and left for dead, snapped. Not broke. Snapped into place. She dialed Morrison's number with steady hands. He just contacted me, she said when the detective answered. And I want to help you catch him. What are you thinking? You said he's smart, that he knows how to disappear. But he's also arrogant. Her voice was stronger now, powered by rage she'd been too scared to feel until this moment. He thinks I'm helpless. He thinks he can threaten me into silence. And I want to use that. I want to be the bait that brings him in. Morrison was quiet for a moment. That's dangerous. More dangerous than waiting for him to come back? More dangerous than letting him do this to someone else. No, Morrison admitted. Then tell me what you need me to do. They met at the police station at 9 a.m. the next morning. Morrison, Hayes, 3 other detectives, a tech specialist, and the woman who refused to be just a victim. Here's the situation, Morrison began, spreading papers across the conference table. Adrian Holt is obsessed with control. He grooms his victims, isolates them, assaults them, and then maintains psychological control through threats. His pattern is consistent. So we use that against him, the woman said. Exactly. But it has to be done carefully. He's paranoid. If he suspects a trap, he'll disappear again. The tech specialist, a young woman with purple hair and sharp eyes, pulled up a laptop. We need to create a new dating profile. Something that fits his target demographic perfectly. Older woman, Morrison listed. Recently widowed or divorced. Lives alone. Minimal family contact. Active church member. He seems to prefer religious women because they're less likely to report assault due to shame. That's disgusting, Hayes muttered. That's strategic, Morrison corrected. He's not random. He's calculated. The woman spoke up. Use my story. The real one. Widowed 7 years ago. Church-going. Daughter lives out of state. Everything that made me vulnerable to him, use it. We'll need photos, the tech said. But not yours. He'll recognize you. I have a friend, the woman offered. Similar age. Similar look. She'd help. They spent the next 3 hours building the perfect trap. A profile for a woman named Grace. 63 years old. Kind eyes. Soft smile. Bio that read, starting over is scary but staying stuck is scarier. Looking for someone patient and kind. The tech uploaded it to 3 different dating apps, the same ones Adrian had used before. Now we wait, Morrison said. The woman looked at the fake profile on the screen. How long? Could be days. Could be weeks. Predators like Adrian hunt constantly. He'll find this profile eventually. And when he does, we trace every message, every call, every piece of contact. And when he suggests meeting, Morrison's smile was sharp. That's when we close the trap. Will it work? It has to. Comment Grace right now if you believe this woman deserves justice. Hit that like button if you're on the edge of your seat. And subscribe because what happens next, the moment Adrian takes the bait, is the beginning of the end for a predator who thought he was untouchable. Because sometimes the prey becomes the hunter. And sometimes monsters forget that survivors have teeth. Ne recently transferred from narcotics, and had a grandmother's face with a fighter's instincts. I've done undercover work for 30 years, she told Morrison during the briefing. This predator wants to hurt a vulnerable woman. Instead, he's going to meet someone who knows exactly how to take him apart. They rehearsed every scenario. What if he attacks immediately? What if he brings a weapon? What if he suspects something? Margaret had responses for everything, code words that would alert the team without tipping him off. If I mention needing to water my roses, that means I feel threatened but not in immediate danger, she explained. If I say I need to check on my hibiscus plants, that's the signal for immediate entry. Hibiscus, Morrison repeated, noting the deliberate choice of the real victim's favorite flower. Got it? Thursday arrived. 7 days passed like 7 years. The fake profile sat online, a digital beacon designed to attract a monster. The woman, the real survivor, the one whose story they'd weaponized, checked her phone every hour, waiting for Detective Morrison's call. Nothing. On the 8th day at 2:47 p.m. her phone finally rang. He took the bait, Morrison said. But what Morrison didn't say, what she couldn't say yet, was that Adrian had also messaged 2 other women that same morning. Women with real profiles. real addresses, real vulnerability. The clock was already ticking. In the tech lab at the police station, 5 people crowded around a single laptop screen, watching words appear in real time. New match on Silver Connections dating app. Profile name, David M. The photos showed a different man this time, gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses, distinguished looking. Morrison ran the images through reverse search immediately. Stolen again. This time from a deceased professor in California. It's him, she confirmed. Same pattern. New identity. New photos. But same hunting ground. The first message appeared. Your profile caught my attention. Starting over is scary, but staying stuck is scarier. That's beautifully honest. Most people hide behind small talk and shallow compliments. You seem real. The tech specialist, her name was Jordan, typed back following the script they'd prepared. Thank you. I've learned that life's too short for pretending. Are you real too, David? His response came within minutes. As real as a twice-divorced accountant with bad knees and good intentions can be. Smiley face. I'm new to this whole online dating thing. My daughter convinced me to try. Said I was becoming a hermit. Morrison leaned back in her chair. Classic. Presents himself as inexperienced. Makes himself seem harmless. The daughter mention adds legitimacy. Jordan continued the conversation, following the psychological profile they'd built. Keep responses warm but cautious. Show interest but don't seem desperate. Mirror his energy. But then something unexpected happened. A notification popped up on Jordan's secondary monitor, the one tracking Adrian's activity across multiple dating platforms. Detective, Jordan said quietly, her voice tight. He's active on 2 other apps right now. Messaging other women. Morrison's blood went cold. Show me. Jordan pulled up the feeds. 2 separate conversations, both following the same pattern, both with women in the Houston area who matched his preferred demographic. One was 67, recently widowed. The other was 62, divorced, lived alone. Both were real people in real danger. Can we warn them? Hayes asked. If we do, he might get spooked, Morrison said, her mind racing. But if we don't, he might go after them instead of our trap, Jordan finished. Morrison made a decision. Jordan, create fake technical issues on those other apps. Make it look like their profiles are temporarily suspended. System maintenance. Give us 48 hours to get him committed to Grace. On it. But as Jordan worked, another message appeared in Adrian's conversation with Grace. I have to be honest with you. I'm talking to a couple other women on here. Nothing serious yet. But there's something about you that feels different. More genuine. Does that bother you? Was a test. Morrison could see it clearly. He was gauging Grace's reaction, looking for signs of jealousy, possessiveness, insecurity. Tell him it doesn't bother you, Morrison instructed. But make it clear you're not going to wait around forever. Jordan typed, I appreciate your honesty, David. I'm just looking for something real, not a competition. If you find that with someone else, I'll understand. But I hope you don't. 30 seconds passed. 60. Morrison's jaw clenched. Had they pushed too hard? Not hard enough? Finally, his response. You're right. I'm wasting time. You're the one I want to get to know. Delete the app if you want. I'm done looking. He's lying, Hayes muttered. Of course he is, Morrison agreed. But he's committing to our target. That's what matters. Except it wasn't a lie. 3 minutes later, Jordan's system showed Adrian's other 2 conversations going dark. He deleted those matches. He was focused entirely on Grace now. Why would he do that? Hayes asked. He usually keeps multiple targets active. Dr. Reynolds, the psychologist, studied the message exchange. Because Grace pushed back slightly. Showed independence. That's catnip to predators like him. They want to conquer someone with spirit, not someone who's completely broken already. It makes the victory sweeter. Morrison felt sick. So we gave him exactly what he wanted. Yes. Which means he's going to move fast. Drop a hurry in the comments if you can feel time running out. Hit that like button if your heart is pounding. Because what happens in the next 72 hours will determine whether they catch a predator or lose him forever. Over the next 10 days, the calls became routine. Every evening at 7:15 p.m., Adrian would call Grace. He was remarkably consistent. Same time, same approach, same emotional manipulation techniques. But on day 6, something changed. Valerie was on the call, following the script perfectly, when Adrian said something that made everyone in the monitoring room freeze. "Grace, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Have you ever had anyone break into your house?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Valerie didn't miss a beat. "No, why do you ask?" "Just wondering. You live alone. Quiet neighborhood. A woman in your position. You have to be careful. There are predators out there." The irony was suffocating. "I have good locks," Valerie said carefully. "And a security system." "What kind?" Morrison scribbled on a notepad and held it up. "Evasive. Don't give details." "Just a basic one," Valerie answered. "It makes noise if someone tries to break in. That's usually enough to scare people off." "Usually," Adrian repeated. "But not always. Some people are very determined." There was something in his voice, an edge, a warning, a promise. "David, you're scaring me a little," Valerie said, and the tremor in her voice was real. He laughed, warm, gentle, completely disarming. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just worry about you. A beautiful, kind woman like you deserves to feel safe." After the call ended, Morrison played back the recording 3 times. "He was testing her," Dr. Reynolds said, "seeing if she'd reveal security details. He's planning his approach." "Or he suspects something," Hayes countered. "No," Jordan interrupted, pulling up data on her screen. "Look." After that call, he searched online for how to disable basic home security systems. He bought the story. He's preparing. Morrison felt the trap tightening. "How long do you think we have?" "Based on his previous patterns? He'll suggest meeting within the next 3 to 5 calls. He's built enough trust. Now he's in the assessment phase, figuring out how to control the environment. Then we need to be ready in 3 days." But that night at 11:42 p.m., Morrison's phone rang. It was the real survivor, the woman whose story had started everything. "He's here," she whispered, and Morrison could hear pure terror in her voice. "What? Where?" "Outside my house. I just saw someone in my backyard, looking through my windows." Morrison was already grabbing her keys, signaling Hayes. "Can you see him now?" "No, he ran when my motion light came on." "But detective," her voice cracked. "He left something on my back door." "What?" "A yellow rose. The same flowers Adrian had brought to their first meeting." Morrison's blood turned to ice. "Lock every door. Every window. I'm sending a patrol car immediately, and I'm 10 minutes away. He knows where I am. He knows I talked to you." "Oh God, he's going to." "Listen to me. He's not going to touch you. I promise. We have units en route. Stay on the phone with me." Morrison drove with lights flashing, Hayes beside her, while dispatch coordinated patrol units. But when they arrived at the house 7 minutes later, there was no sign of Adrian. Just a single yellow rose, placed carefully on the back door handle. And tucked beneath it, a note written in neat handwriting. "I told you what would happen if you talked. But I'm a forgiving man. One more chance. Stay quiet, or next time I won't leave a flower." The survivor stood in her living room, every light blazing, gripping a kitchen knife with white knuckles. "He was here," she said. "He was actually here watching me, and I didn't even know until—" "We're going to move you," Morrison said immediately. "Safe house. Different city. Right now." "No." Morrison blinked. "Excuse me?" "No." The survivor's voice was stronger now, powered by rage instead of fear. "If I run, he wins. And he's probably counting on that, counting on me being so scared that I disappear, that I stop helping you. This isn't about winning or losing." "Yes, it is." She looked Morrison directly in the eyes. "Use me. Put me in that house you're setting up. Let me be the one who faces him." "Absolutely not." "What? Because I'm old? Because I'm a victim?" Her hands shook but her voice didn't. I know his patterns. I know his voice. I know exactly how he thinks because I've been inside his manipulation. Your undercover officer is good, but she's playing a part. I lived it. Hayes spoke up. Detective, she has a point. She's a civilian. Who has more reason than anyone to see this through? Hayes turned to the survivor. You understand this is dangerous? That he's escalated? That showing up here means he's willing to risk exposure. I understand that if we don't catch him now while he's focused on me, he'll disappear and do this to someone else. She set the knife down on her coffee table. I'm not running. I'm finishing this. Morrison looked at the yellow rose, still sitting in an evidence bag on the kitchen counter. At the note with its elegant handwriting. At the woman who'd been broken 2 weeks ago and was now standing straight, eyes clear, jaw set. If we do this, Morrison said slowly, you follow every instruction. Every protocol. No improvising. No heroics. Deal. And we add extra fail-safes. More officers. Faster response time. The second, and I mean the second, anything feels wrong, we extract you. Agreed. Morrison rubbed her temples. This was either brilliant or insane and she couldn't tell which. We'll need to train you, she said finally. Intensively. Starting tomorrow. You need to know self-defense, code words, how to spot threats, how to... I'll do whatever it takes. Hayes cleared his throat. Detective, we've got another problem. What now? He held up his phone, showing a text message that had just come through to the Grace burner phone. From Adrian. I can't wait until Thursday. How about tomorrow night instead? I'll bring dessert. You just bring yourself. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Everyone in the room went still. He's accelerating, Dr. Reynolds said via speakerphone. Morrison had called him the moment they found the rose. The fact that he just threatened her and then immediately messaged Grace means he's in a heightened state. Probably gets off on the fear he's creating. He's going to strike soon whether we're ready or not. Morrison looked at her watch. 12:07 a.m. If they said yes to tomorrow night, they had less than 20 hours to prepare. If they said no, he might disappear again, or worse, he might come after the real survivor before they could protect her. Tell him yes, Morrison decided. Tomorrow night. 7 o'clock. But Jordan? Already on it, Jordan said, her laptop open. I'm flagging his phone number, tracking his location in real time, and setting up alerts if he moves outside a 5-mile radius of Houston. Can you do that without him knowing? He won't have a clue. Morrison turned back to the survivor. Last chance to back out. I'm in. Then tomorrow night you're going to sit in that house, and when a predator walks through the door thinking he's found his next victim, Morrison's smile was cold and sharp. He's going to find out exactly what happens when prey fights back. But what Morrison didn't know, what none of them knew yet, was that Adrian had already made a critical mistake. A mistake that would reveal he wasn't working alone. And that the woman helping him was someone they'd already met. At 3:33 a.m., while the team was still coordinating logistics for the next evening, Jordan noticed something strange in the phone records. Detective Morrison? She called out from her workstation. You need to see this. Morrison walked over, exhausted and running on coffee and adrenaline. Jordan pointed to a call log. Adrian's burner phone. He made a call 20 minutes after messaging Grace about moving the date up. To who? Another burner number. But here's the interesting part. That second number has been in contact with Adrian's phone almost every day for the past 4 months. Sometimes multiple times a day. Long conversations, 30 minutes or more. Can we trace it? Working on it. But look at the pattern. Jordan pulled up a timeline. Every time Adrian contacts a new target, he has a conversation with this number first. Like he's consulting someone. Hayes leaned over Jordan's shoulder. Or coordinating. You think he has a partner? Morrison asked. I think someone is helping him select targets, craft messages, refine his approach. Jordan pulled up another screen. And look at this. Analysis of his text message patterns shows 2 distinct writing styles. The initial messages are more sophisticated. Better vocabulary, more emotionally intelligent. But his later messages, especially the sexual ones, are cruder. Simpler. Dr. Reynolds, who was still on speakerphone, made a sound. Are you suggesting someone else is writing his early messages? I'm suggesting someone with better social skills is coaching him. Maybe even writing his profile, crafting his initial approach, teaching him what to say. Morrison's mind raced. Patricia. His sister. The one who said she tried to stop him? Hayes shook his head. She seemed terrified of him. Or she's a very good actress. Morrison pulled up Patricia Holt's information. Social worker background. Would know exactly how to manipulate emotional responses. Would understand psychological vulnerabilities. Jordan, can you pull Patricia's phone records? That requires a warrant. Then get me a judge. No. I don't care that it's 3 in the morning. By 5:47 a.m. they had the warrant. By 6:15 a.m. they had the records. And at 6:22 a.m., Jordan confirmed what Morrison had started to suspect. It's her, Jordan said, her voice tight with anger. Patricia Holt's phone number matches the second burner. Every conversation Adrian had with his consultant was with his sister. She wasn't a victim of his violence, Morrison said slowly, pieces clicking together. She was his partner. Hayes pulled up the recording of their interview with Patricia. She played us. The tears, the scar, the fear, all of it was an act. Not necessarily all of it, Dr. Reynolds interjected. She might genuinely fear him while also enabling him. Abusive relationships are complex. But regardless of her motivations, if she's been helping him select and groom victims, she's criminally liable. Morrison checked her watch. They had 12 hours until Adrian arrived at the trap house. Bring her in, Morrison ordered. Now, before she can warn him. But when officers arrived at Patricia Holt's apartment at 7:04 a.m., they found it empty. Cleared out. Not just empty, evacuated. No furniture. No clothes. No personal items. Just a cheap burner phone sitting on the kitchen counter, turned off. And a note, written in the same elegant handwriting as the threat left on the survivor's door. You're smarter than I thought. But so am I. See you soon. P. Comment partner if you didn't see that coming. Hit that subscribe button because this just got twice as complicated. 2 predators instead of 1. And now they know the police are coming. Drop a like if you're terrified for what happens next. Morrison called an emergency meeting at 8 a.m. Everyone looked exhausted, but nobody suggested postponing. Here's what we know, Morrison began, writing on the whiteboard. Adrian Holt and his sister Patricia are working together. She's been helping him select targets, craft messages, and possibly plan attacks. She knew we were onto them, so she ran. Which means Adrian might know too, Hayes said. Possibly. But he kept his meeting with Grace scheduled for tonight, which suggests either he doesn't know or it's a trap for us, Jordan finished. The room went silent. What if he knows Grace is a setup? Jordan continued. What if Patricia figured it out and told him? He could be planning to show up with the intention of, she struggled to say it, of hurting cops instead of a victim. Then we adapt, Morrison said. We add more officers. Full tactical team. If he comes in armed and dangerous, we'll be ready. The survivor, who'd insisted on being part of the planning session, spoke up. But if he suspects it's a trap, he won't come at all. He'll run. And we'll never get another chance this good. She was right. Unless, Valerie said slowly, we give him something he can't resist. Like what? Me. The real Grace. On the phone with him one more time. Valerie looked at Morrison. Let me call him this morning. Unscheduled. I'll tell him I'm nervous, having second thoughts, considering canceling. Predators hate losing control. If he thinks he's losing his grip on the target, he'll commit even harder. Dr. Reynolds agreed over the speakerphone. It's psychologically sound. The threat of losing the prize will override caution. But if Patricia is coaching him, Hayes pointed out, won't she tell him it's a manipulation? Not if she doesn't know about the call, Jordan said. If we do it during a time when she's usually unavailable, like late morning when she used to be at work, Adrian will take the call alone. Morrison considered the angles. Every option was a risk. Do it, she decided. But make it quick. Express doubt, let him talk you back down, then get off the phone. We don't want to give him too much time to analyze it. At 10:33 a.m., Valerie made the call. Adrian answered on the second ring. Grace? This is a nice surprise. I wasn't expecting to hear from you until tonight. That's actually why I'm calling. Valerie's voice was perfectly calibrated, nervous, uncertain. David, I'm having second thoughts about tonight. Silence. Heavy and dangerous. Second thoughts, he repeated, and the warmth had drained from his voice. It's moving fast. We've only been talking for 2 weeks. I don't usually invite men I've never met to my home. What if you're not who you say you are? What if? Grace. His voice was firm now, controlling. I understand you're nervous. That's normal. But I thought we had a connection. Was I wrong about that? No, but. Because if I was wrong, if you're not actually interested, just tell me now. I'm too old for games. The manipulation was textbook, making her feel guilty for having boundaries, making her fear losing him, forcing her to prove her interest. I am interested, Valerie said. I'm just scared. Of me. Of being hurt again. His voice softened instantly, the switch from punishment to reward. I would never hurt you. Grace, listen to me. I know we haven't met in person yet, but I feel like I know you. Like I've been waiting to meet you my whole life. If you cancel tonight, I'll understand. But I'll also wonder if maybe you're not as brave as I thought you were. There was the challenge. The implication that having boundaries made her weak. I don't want you to think I'm a coward, Valerie said quietly. Then don't be one. Pause. Tonight. 7 o'clock. Give us a chance. Give yourself a chance. You deserve this, Grace. You deserve to be happy. Okay. Valerie let her voice tremble slightly. Okay. 7 o'clock. That's my girl. I'll see you tonight. The call ended. Everyone in the monitoring room exhaled. He's coming, Morrison said. He's absolutely coming. But Jordan was frowning at her computer screen. Detective, we have a problem. What now? Adrian's location. His phone just pinged off a cell tower 20 minutes from the trap house. So, we knew he was in the Houston area. No, you don't understand. Jordan pulled up a map. This tower is 3 miles from where Patricia used to live. And there's a self-storage facility in this area. I'm pulling records now. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. And yes, storage unit rented 8 months ago under a fake name, but the credit card links back to Patricia. You think he's there? I think they're both there. And I think they're preparing. Morrison's phone buzzed. A text from the officers watching the trap house. Unknown vehicle drove past 3 times in the last hour. Couldn't get plates. Might be surveillance. Everything was accelerating. Hayes, take a team to that storage facility. Do not engage, just observe and report. Jordan, I need every camera feed from that neighborhood. And someone get the survivor into protective custody at a secondary location. No, the survivor interrupted. We had a deal. I'm seeing this through. The situation has changed. Then I'll change with it. Her jaw was set. You said I'd be safe in that house. You said you'd have backup everywhere. So trust your plan and let me do this. Morrison wanted to argue. But they needed Adrian to believe everything was normal. And the survivor was right, she'd earned this. Fine. But you're getting a panic button. The kind that alerts us instantly if you press it. And you're getting additional self-defense training in the next. She checked her watch. 6 hours. Deal. At 2:17 p.m., Hayes called from the storage facility. You're not going to believe this, he said, and Morrison could hear the tension in his voice. What did you find? Patricia's car. Parked behind the building. And Morrison, the trunk is open. I can see zip ties, duct tape, garbage bags, a tarp. Morrison's blood went cold. That's a murder kit. Yeah. And based on the fresh tire tracks, someone was here within the last hour. Where are they now? Gone. But Detective, Hayes paused. There's something else. I found a laptop in the car. Left it running like they had to leave in a hurry. It's open to a Google Maps location. What location? The trap house. Our trap house. They know the address. The bottom dropped out of Morrison's stomach. They know, she said aloud, even though Hayes had already confirmed it. They know it's a trap and they're coming anyway. Why would they do that? Hayes asked. Dr. Reynolds, still on the line, answered, because they're not coming to assault a victim anymore. They're coming to eliminate witnesses, to prove they're smarter than law enforcement, to make a statement. Or, Jordan said quietly, pulling up something on her screen that made her face go pale, they're coming because they know we have someone they want. She turned her monitor around. On the screen was Patricia's social media page, not her main one, but a hidden account Jordan had just uncovered. And the most recent post, made 30 minutes ago, showed a photo of the real survivor leaving the police station that morning. The caption read, "Loose ends need tying." Morrison's hands clenched into fists. They weren't just hunting a predator anymore. They were protecting prey from two killers who knew exactly where she'd be at 7 p.m. And there were 4 hours left to prepare. Drop protect in the comments if you're afraid for what happens next. Smash that like button. Subscribe because in the final 2 chapters, you're going to witness a confrontation that nobody, not the predators, not the police, not the survivor, sees coming. Because when the trap is set for both sides, someone's walking out in handcuffs. And someone might not walk out at all. 6:47 p.m. 13 minutes until a monster arrived at her door. The survivor sat in the living room of the trap house, wearing a pale blue cardigan that wasn't hers, sitting on a floral couch she'd never seen before, in a home that smelled like someone else's life. Her hands trembled in her lap despite the weighted vest hidden beneath her clothing. Kevlar, they'd called it, like that word could stop her heart from hammering against her ribs. Outside, in unmarked vehicles scattered across 3 blocks, 17 officers waited with weapons drawn and prayers whispered. Inside her ear, so small she'd forgotten it was there until Morrison's voice crackled through. "How are you holding up?" She touched the panic button disguised as a pendant around her neck. "Ask me in an hour," she whispered back. The house had been staged to perfection. Too perfect, maybe. Every detail calculated to suggest a lonely woman's life. Photographs of people she'd never met, a Bible bookmarked to verses about strength, even a pair of reading glasses left casually on the side table. But she'd added one item herself. Her late husband's cologne bottle, sitting on the mantel where she could see it. Morrison had protested. "Nothing personal. Nothing that connects you to this. I need him here," she'd said simply. "Even if it's just his smell. I need to remember why I'm doing this." Now, staring at that bottle while the clock on the wall ticked toward 7, she understood something the detectives didn't. She wasn't bait. She was a witness. A judge. A reckoning. 6:52 p.m. Morrison's voice again, vehicle approaching from the east. Silver sedan. Plates match the rental car tied to Adrian's fake ID. He's alone in the vehicle. "Patricia?" the survivor asked. "No visual yet. But we have to assume she's close. Everyone stay sharp." The survivor stood, smoothing her cardigan, checking her reflection in the mirror hanging above the couch. She looked like someone's grandmother. Soft, harmless, breakable. She smiled at her reflection. Let him think that. 6:58 p.m. Headlights swept across the front windows. The survivor's breath caught. A car door slammed. Footsteps on the walkway. She moved to the door, hands shaking as she reached for the knob. Morrison's voice was steady in her ear. "Remember your grace. You're nervous but excited. You invited him here. Make it believable." "I don't have to pretend to be nervous," she thought. "That part's real." 3 knocks. Gentle. Non-threatening. She opened the door. And there he stood. Adrian Holt. Older than his photos. Harder around the eyes. But the smile was the same, warm, disarming, calculated to make her feel safe right before he destroyed her. He held a bottle of wine in one hand and a small bakery box in the other. "Grace." His voice was honey and gravel. "It's so wonderful to finally meet you." She forced her lips into a smile even though every cell in her body screamed run. "David. Come in." He stepped across the threshold. She closed the door behind him. And in 17 vehicles scattered across the neighborhood, 17 officers tensed, fingers hovering over triggers, waiting for the signal that might never come in time. It was good. Terrifyingly good. He complimented her home, her dress, the way she'd set the table. He opened the wine with practiced ease and poured 2 glasses, his movements smooth and unthreatening. To second chances, he said, raising his glass. She clinked hers against his, the sound sharp in the quiet room. Second chances. They sat on the couch, not too close, respectful distance, and talked about nothing. The weather. Local restaurants. A funny story about his supposed daughter's wedding. All lies, but delivered with such conviction that even knowing the truth, she found herself almost believing him. In her ear, Morrison whispered, "He's playing it safe, establishing comfort. Let him lead but watch for escalation." The survivor nodded imperceptibly. Adrian leaned back, getting comfortable. "I have to tell you, I was nervous about tonight." "Really? You seem so calm." "I'm good at hiding it." His smile turned self-deprecating. "Truth is, I haven't done this in years. Dating. Meeting someone new. After my wife died, I thought that part of my life was over." The lie sat between them like a third person. "I felt the same way," she said, "and this part wasn't acting. Like I'd already had my chance at love. Like asking for more was greedy." "It's not greedy." He shifted slightly closer. "It's human." His hand moved toward hers. She let him take it. His palm was warm, his grip firm but not aggressive. She remembered another hand. Another night. The same touch that had seemed gentle right before it turned brutal. "You're trembling," he observed. "Just nervous." "Don't be." His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "I'm not going to hurt you, Grace. I promise." In her ear, 32 minutes in. No signs of Patricia. "Stay alert." But the survivor was already alert, because she'd just seen something that made her blood freeze. On Adrian's wrist, partially hidden by his sleeve, was a tattoo. 2 birds in flight. The same tattoo she'd seen that night. The night he'd destroyed her. She'd been too traumatized to mention it in her initial report, the detail lost in the fog of horror. But now, seeing it again, everything clicked into sharp, terrible focus. This wasn't David from the dating app. This was him. The man who'd raped her. The man who'd left yellow roses and threats. The man who thought she was someone named Grace. He didn't recognize her. Different hair, she'd cut and dyed it after the assault. Different makeup. Different clothes. 40 pounds lost from stress and trauma. To him, she was just another target. But to her, he was everything. She must have made a sound, some small indication of recognition, because his expression shifted. "Something wrong?" he asked, and there was an edge beneath the concern. "No, I just think. I thought I heard something outside." "Want me to check?" "No, it's fine. Probably just the neighbors." But his eyes had sharpened, scanning her face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. In her ear, Morrison's voice was urgent. "Your heart rate just spiked. The monitoring equipment is picking it up." "What's happening?" The survivor couldn't answer. Couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. Because Adrian was standing now, moving to the window, and she realized with crystalline clarity. He was checking for surveillance. "Nice neighborhood," he said casually, but his eyes were tracking every parked car, every shadow. "Quiet. That's why I like it." He turned back to her, and his smile was still in place, but something underneath had changed. "Grace, can I use your bathroom?" "Of course." "Down the hall, first door on the right." He walked away, and the moment he disappeared, Morrison's voice exploded in her ear. "He's checking the house. Looking for signs it's a setup. Do not let him go in the bedrooms. If he asks, make an excuse." "Understood," she breathed. But then she heard it. Not from the bathroom. From the bedroom. Drawers opening. He wasn't using the bathroom. He was searching. She stood, pulse hammering, and called out, "David? Everything okay?" Silence. Then footsteps. He emerged from the hallway, and the warm smile was gone completely. "You know what's interesting, Grace?" He walked toward her slowly. "The bathroom has hotel soap. Generic towels. No personal items at all. And the bedroom? His voice dropped. Has nothing in the drawers. No clothes. No medication. Nothing that suggests someone actually lives here. The survivor backed toward the door. I can explain. And you know what else is interesting? He kept advancing. You look familiar. Different but familiar. Like maybe I've seen you before. Her hand went to the panic button. I don't know what you're. The hair, he interrupted, his voice rising. That's what's different. You cut your hair. And lost weight. But your eyes? He stopped 3 feet away, studying her. I know those eyes. Recognition slammed into his face. Oh, he breathed. Oh, this is perfect. He laughed, a sound completely devoid of humanity. You set me up. The lonely widow who couldn't keep her mouth shut actually had the balls to set me up. He pulled something from his jacket. Not a knife this time. A gun. Small. Black. Pointed directly at her chest. Here's what's going to happen, he said, and his voice was flat, mechanical. You're going to call off whoever's listening. Tell them it was a false alarm. Tell them I left. And then you and I are going to take a ride somewhere private where we can finish what we started. The survivor's hand was on the panic button. 1 press. 1 second. Help would come. But he'd see her do it. And at this range he wouldn't miss. In her ear, Morrison's voice was sharp. We heard everything. On my signal, drop to the floor. Tactical team is moving to entry positions now. But before Morrison could give the signal, before the survivor could drop, before Adrian could pull the trigger, the front door exploded inward. Not from police. From a woman. Patricia Holt. She held a gun too, sweeping it across the room, and her voice was ice. Nobody move. Hands where I can see them. Adrian spun toward her. What are you doing? I told you to stay in the car. And I told you this felt wrong. Patricia's gun moved between her brother and the survivor. She's wired. Look at her necklace, that's a panic button. And the house, it's a setup, Adrian. We need to leave now. Not without finishing this. She's already pressed it. The police are probably. Glass shattered. Smoke filled the room. Commands shouted from everywhere at once. Police, drop your weapons. Get on the ground. Hands where we can see them. The survivor hit the floor, covering her head as the world erupted into chaos. Gunfire. Screaming. Bodies moving in tactical gear. She couldn't see. Couldn't breathe. Could only press herself flat against the carpet and pray. Someone grabbed her arm, rough, urgent. I've got the survivor. Moving to extract. She was dragged toward the back door, through smoke and shouting, into the night air that tasted like freedom and gunpowder. Behind her, in the house, more shots. More screaming. And then, silence. Hit that like button if your heart is pounding. Drop survive in the comments. Subscribe because the final chapter is going to answer every question. Who lived, who died, and what justice really looks like when survivors stop being silent. 47 minutes after the smoke cleared, the survivor sat in an ambulance with a blanket around her shoulders and Morrison beside her, both of them watching paramedics load a gurney into a second ambulance. Someone was on that gurney. Someone was still alive. The survivor couldn't tell who. Morrison's phone rang. She answered, listened for 30 seconds, then hung up and turned to face the woman who'd risked everything. Adrian Holt is dead, Morrison said quietly. Took 3 rounds to the chest when he refused to drop his weapon. He was pronounced at the scene. The survivor felt nothing. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just emptiness where something should have been. And Patricia? She asked. Morrison's expression was complicated. Injured but alive. Took a bullet to the shoulder. She's being transported to the hospital under guard. She'll survive to stand trial. The survivor watched the second ambulance pull away, lights flashing but no siren. No rush when the patient is already gone. Did he? She struggled to form the words. Did he say anything? At the end? Morrison hesitated. You don't want to know. Yes, I do. A long silence. Then, he smiled. Right before he raised his gun at the officers. Like he'd won something. The survivor closed her eyes. Even in death, Adrian Holt had found a way to control the narrative, choosing his own end rather than facing justice. But he'd miscalculated one thing. He wasn't the story anymore. She was. The interrogation room was small, cold, and smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. Patricia Holt sat across from Morrison and Hayes, her right arm in a sling, her face gaunt from pain and sleepless nights. "I want to make a deal," Patricia said, her voice hoarse. "We're listening," Morrison replied. Patricia took a shaky breath. "I'll give you everything. Names, locations, methods. Every woman Adrian targeted in the last 5 years. I kept records, dates, profiles, messages. Everything." "Why would you keep records of your brother's crimes?" Hayes asked. "Insurance." Patricia's laugh was bitter. "I knew eventually he'd turn on me too. Men like him always do. So I documented everything, kept copies hidden. If he ever tried to hurt me, I had proof." "But you helped him," Morrison said, her voice hard. "You crafted those profiles, wrote those messages. You used your social work training to identify vulnerable women and feed them to your brother." "I know." Tears tracked down Patricia's face. "I know what I am. I know there's no forgiveness for it. But I can give you closure for families who never knew what happened to their mothers, their grandmothers. Women who disappeared. Women who were too ashamed to report. Women who died thinking it was their fault." Morrison leaned forward. "How many?" 14 we can prove. Maybe more." He didn't tell me about all of them. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. 14 women. 14 lives shattered. And Patricia had enabled every single one. "Give us the names," Morrison said. "All of them. And maybe you spend life in prison instead of death row." Patricia nodded and began to talk. She talked for 6 hours. Detectives filled 3 legal pads with notes. And with every name she gave, every detail she provided, a family somewhere got the answer they'd been waiting for. Not the answer they wanted, but the truth nonetheless. The survivor walked into the courtroom with her head high and her daughter's hand in hers. Patricia Holt's trial had been swift. Her cooperation had secured a plea deal that spared her the death penalty but guaranteed she'd never see freedom again. Life without parole. The judge had asked if anyone wanted to give victim impact statements. 11 women raised their hands. The survivor was the last to speak. She stood at the podium, looking directly at Patricia, who couldn't meet her eyes. "You want to know what you took from me?" the survivor began, her voice steady. "Not just my body. Not just my sense of safety. You took my ability to trust myself. You made me doubt every instinct that told me something was wrong. You made me feel stupid for believing in connection. For hoping I could be loved again." Patricia's shoulders shook with silent sobs. "But here's what you didn't take." The survivor's voice grew stronger. "You didn't take my voice. You didn't take my will to fight. And you didn't take my belief that justice matters." She paused, letting the words settle. "Your brother is dead. He chose that. But you have to live every day knowing you destroyed 14 families. 14 women who deserved love got violence instead. And you made that possible." The courtroom was silent except for quiet crying from the other survivors scattered throughout the benches. "I hope you live a very long life," the survivor said finally. "I hope every morning you wake up and remember our faces. I hope our voices follow you into every cell, every meal, every moment of your very long, very lonely life." She turned to the judge. "That's all I have to say." She walked back to her seat, legs shaking but spirit unbroken. The judge thanked her, adjusted his glasses, and delivered Patricia's sentence. 14 consecutive life sentences. No possibility of parole. You will die in prison, Miss Holt. And that is more mercy than you showed your victims. The gavel struck. Patricia was led away. And the survivors, 11 women who'd thought they were alone, stood together and watched justice finally arrive. The survivor stood in her new living room, smaller than the old one, in a different city where nobody knew her story unless she chose to tell it. She'd sold the Beaumont house. Couldn't live there anymore. Too many ghosts. This place was smaller but brighter. She'd painted the walls herself, soft yellow, the color of hope and new mornings. Her daughter visited every weekend now. The church ladies from her old congregation called regularly, and she'd started attending a support group for survivors of violence. She'd learned she wasn't alone, had never been alone. The women in that group, different ages, different stories, same strength, had become her family. One evening, while watering her hibiscus plants on the new porch, her phone rang. "Detective Morrison." "Just checking in," Morrison said. "How are you?" "Getting there," the survivor answered honestly. "Some days are harder than others. But I'm here. I'm breathing. I'm living. That's more than enough." "Is it though?" The survivor set down her watering can. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever feel normal again. If I'll ever trust someone. If I'll ever stop checking locks 17 times before bed." Morrison was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something?" "Please." "Normal is overrated. What you are now, vigilant, aware, unbreakable, that's better than normal. You survived something designed to destroy you. And not only did you survive, you helped save 13 other women from the same fate." Patricia's testimony led to reopening cold cases. "Families have closure now because of you." The survivor's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't do it for them," she admitted. "I did it because I was angry. Because I refused to let him win. And that's exactly why you did do it for them. Anger that turns into action isn't a weakness. It's power." After they hung up, the survivor stood on her porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere, 13 families had answers. Somewhere, a predator was dead and his accomplice was caged. Somewhere, justice had finally shown up late but present. And here, on a porch with hibiscus plants and yellow walls and locks that worked, a woman who'd been broken learned something crucial. Surviving wasn't the same as healing. But healing started with surviving. And she'd done both. The survivor stood at a podium in front of 300 people. Survivors, advocates, law enforcement, families. The Survivors Alliance had asked her to speak at their annual conference. She'd almost said no. But then she'd remembered the women in her support group who still couldn't speak their stories aloud. Who still blamed themselves. Who still believed they deserved what happened to them. So she said yes. "My name doesn't matter," she began, her voice amplified through speakers that carried her words to the back of the conference hall. "What matters is that I'm standing here. 1 year ago, I couldn't imagine standing anywhere." She told her story, edited, cleaned of the most graphic details, but honest about the fear and the shame and the anger. "I did everything wrong," she said. "I invited a stranger to my home. I trusted someone I'd only known online. I ignored red flags. And for months, I blamed myself for that." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Some were crying. Some were nodding. All were listening. "But here's what I learned. Predators are professionals. They study us. They know exactly what to say, how to act, when to strike. Blaming myself for being targeted by a professional manipulator is like blaming myself for getting sick after someone poisoned my food. The poison was always the problem. Never me." Applause rippled through the audience. "So here's what I want to say to anyone listening who's been where I was. It wasn't your fault. It will never be your fault. And your survival, just your survival, nothing more, is already enough. You don't owe anyone forgiveness. You don't owe anyone healing. You don't even owe anyone this story." She touched the pendant around her neck. Not a panic button anymore, just jewelry, but she wore it as a reminder. "But if you can speak, if you can fight, if you can stand up and say, 'This happened to me and I'm still here,' then you take back the power they tried to steal. One word at a time. One day at a time. One breath at a time." She stepped back from the podium. The applause was deafening. People stood, hundreds of them, crying and clapping and bearing witness to a woman who'd survived and refused to stay silent. Backstage, her daughter waited with tears streaming down her face. "Mom, I'm so proud of you." The survivor pulled her daughter close. "I'm proud of me too. And for the first time in 7 years, since her husband died and the loneliness began, she meant it. But not really an ending. Because survivors don't get neat conclusions tied with pretty bows. They get mornings where breathing feels like victory. They get moments when laughter surprises them. They get years of building something new from the wreckage of what was stolen. The survivor went home that night to her yellow walls and her hibiscus plants and her triple-locked door. She made tea. She played her husband's old jazz records. And she whispered to the empty room, "I'm still here." Those 3 words, her victory, her truth, her future. She was still here. And that was everything. If this story moved you, drop "still here" in the comments. Hit that like button for every survivor who found their voice. And subscribe, because stories like this, stories about resilience, justice, and refusing to be silenced, are what this channel is about. Thank you for witnessing. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing survivors. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and remember, you are never alone.